Josh Frydenberg, good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, well, here in this chamber, Prime Ministers and Treasurers and MPs battled a Great Depression and a World War. Do you feel the weight of history in putting together this budget?
Well, only if these walls could talk, Chris, they would tell the story of the very best of Australia. We've seen the very best of Australia during COVID-19, from our health workers on the front line to our Defence Force on our borders to all those parents who are working from home and homeschooling. This has been a very difficult time, and it is a hard road ahead, but there is a pathway out, and on Tuesday night we'll be laying out that pathway through the budget.
So what is the plan? How do we get out of this?
Well, this budget's all about jobs. This budget is about helping those who are out of work get into work, helping those who are in a job stay in a job. We have faced the single biggest economic shock this country has ever seen. It's happened on both the supply and the demand side. 10% of our workforce have either lost their job or seen their hours reduced to zero. The Morrison government responded with a very comprehensive plan, more than $300 billion of support. That's helped cushion the blow and kept employees and employers connected. We now move to the next phase of our plan with this budget, and you've already seen a number of announcements today.
Yeah, well, we're talking about skills this morning, so that's part of it. You're looking at upgrading the skills, at pouring money into the economy through tax cuts and giving business incentives. Let's look at the tax cut side of that. Why would you drag forward these tax cuts to middle and high-income earners?
Well, as you know, at the last election, there were two competing narratives around tax. We were for tax cuts and the other side were for tax increases. The Australian people voted for our policy and we legislated it, and already it started to deliver for Australians.
Sure, but you're dragging it forward. Why would you do that?
Well, we believe that people should keep more of what they earn, and we also believe that more people having more money in their pockets right now will help economic activity across the economy. More spending will mean more jobs.
You don't want them to keep it in their pockets, though. You want them to spend it, and given it's going to middle and high income earners, how can you be certain they will spend it?
Well, I wouldn't speculate as to what will be in the budget on Tuesday night.
You've been telegraphing it for a month now, so why would they spend it?
Well, our tax cuts have always been focused on low and middle income earners. We know that there is a high savings ratio at the current time, but that's been a reflection of the health restrictions that have been put in place, Chris. That's the fact that people can't go to the local restaurant or travel to the local tourism spot or go out to the local pub. Once those restrictions are eased, and we're seeing that happen outside of Victoria, more money will be spent and that savings ratio will come down.
The high-income earners will get tax cuts if you're over $200,000 a year of $11,000. Why would someone earning that kind of money spend it, and how is that fair?
Well, Chris, our tax system is fair, and it's been a progressive tax system and will remain a progressive tax system. The top 5% of taxpayers pay about a third of the total tax bill. If you're on $200,000, you pay 10 times as much tax as someone who's on $45,000. So our tax plan will continue to remain progressive, and it's part of a broader tax reform where we're creating one big tax bracket between $45,000 and $200,000. 94% of taxpayers will pay no more than 30 cents in the dollar.
You're working on skills as well, trying to get people training so that they can go into the new workforce. What kinds of skills do you want?
Well, we want the skills of today and tomorrow. We want people to be working in the trades, because that's going to be critical to our construction sector, but we also want people working in IT, and you've heard the Prime Minister lay out our manufacturing plan, because there's a real comparative advantage for us in that place. But today we're announcing $1.2 billion to help create more apprenticeships and traineeships. This builds on the $2.8 billion we've already announced, bringing to $4 billion the total amount that we are providing to create more apprenticeships. And our announcement today will help create 100,000 apprenticeships. Whether you're a baker or a butcher, whether you're a sparky, whether you're a plumber or a carpenter, you're getting support from the Morrison government.
The question for all of them and all of us is, will they have jobs? And the big problem that you've got is you're now doing a very difficult dismount. You're going to pull money out of the economy by way of the JobKeeper plan. Come March, will we see a surge in unemployment as that money goes?
Well, Chris, we'll print the unemployment numbers in the budget, but what we have seen is that the unemployment
rate... Your expectation is it will rise, won't it?
Well, the unemployment has come down, but it will go up before the end of the year, and that's a function...
What happens in March when you pull that money out?
Well, it's a function of what's happening in Victoria, but over time that unemployment rate will come down, particularly as restrictions are being eased, more people are going back into work. We've seen in the last 3 months 458,000 100,000 jobs being created. 60% of those jobs have gone to women, 40% have gone to young people. Australia has turned the corner and the recovery is underway.
I understand all of that, but you are going to withdraw an enormous amount of money over time, but specifically by March. Is it your expectation when we hit that point that unemployment will rise?
Well, our expectation is that next year that unemployment will come down, and that includes the tapering off of the JobKeeper program. The JobKeeper program has been a remarkable program. It's right now supporting more than 3.5 million Australian workers. It's helped keep that formal relationship between employer and employee. It's been the single largest program that any Australian government has ever undertaken.
It's a form of triage. So right now, the economy is in casualty, people being kept alive by this blood pumping through their system. You're going to take it out and hope that what you do next will create jobs. That's a gamble, isn't it?
Well, we're transitioning to the next phase, and what you'll see in the budget is other initiatives, other economic support programs designed to spur activity and investment across the economy. That will create jobs, because this budget is all about jobs.
And you're not going to take out money from the economy completely until you see unemployment drop below 6%. You're going to keep spending from now on.
Well, the history of previous recessions, and bearing in mind Australia's had a record run of economic growth nearly 30 years long, better than any other developed nation. The history of previous recessions is that unemployment went up the elevator but came down the stairs. So we saw in the 1980s it took 6 years to get unemployment down below 6% where it started. We saw in the 1990s that it took a decade, 10 years. Now, obviously, we want to move quicker than that, and that is why we're engaged in a full court press.
You're going to keep spending, you're going to deliver a budget deficit this time around of above $200 billion. If I'm in the Labor Party, why wouldn't I say that you're now presiding over a debt and deficit disaster that put anything they did into the shade?
Well, the fact is the Labor Party is even calling for more spending, so I don't think they've got solid ground there. But the fact is
why wouldn't some people brand this a debt and deficit disaster?
Well, this crisis dwarfs the GFC. So you've seen the OECD say that they expect the global economy to shrink by 4.5% this year. In contrast, during the GFC, it shrunk by 0.1%. But the Labor Party, when they were in government, they baked in spending for years. Our spending, as announced up to the July economic update, was 98% in the first 2 years.
You say it's temporary, but you also say that you're not going to stop spending until you get unemployment below 6%. So you don't know when that's going to be.
Well, our spending is targeted, our spending is temporary, our spending is proportionate, our spending is designed to create jobs.
How is any of this fair? In the way that we've dealt with this crisis, we've essentially asked the young people of Australia to make a sacrifice, mostly we now know, for the older generations. Now we're saying to them, your future is going to be crimped, there'll be fewer jobs, there'll be less opportunity for you, and you're going to have to pay for all of this. Isn't this one of the great intergenerational inequities of all time?
Well, the heavy debt burden is
the
heavy debt burden is the price of protecting lives and livelihoods today. But every day when I get up in the morning, Chris, I think about my 2 children. I think about creating a better Australian for them and for the millions of other children across the country. We had to do what we did, and that has helped save 700,000 jobs.
Can you look at the children of Australia today and tell them that the way we've gone about dealing with this crisis and the fact that they will be paying for this for generations through higher taxes in the long run and through less services in the long run, because this has to be paid back one day, doesn't it? And there's only one of 2 ways you can do that. You cut services or you lift taxes.
It can be paid back by growing the economy, by creating more jobs. There is no economic recovery without a jobs recovery, and there is no budget repair without a jobs recovery. So we're focused on getting more people into jobs. But I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm very hopeful about the future. I look at our young people, and I think that they can have the better opportunities than what I even had growing up myself.
So in a year's time, in 10 years' time, and in 100 years' time, when historians look back on this, how will you measure success? How would you like this to be remembered?
About getting people back to work, faster than previous recessions, helping people who are in a job stay in a job. This economic shock has been like no other. Around 500 million people have lost their jobs around the world. But Australia has performed better than any other developed nation, and because we came into this crisis from a position of economic strength, we were able to spend through this crisis as required. So our focus is on keeping people in work and creating more jobs for those who are out of work.
Well, Josh Frydenberg, for all of our sakes, good luck.
Thank you, Chris.